Welcome to the So You Want to Start a Business podcast. Welcome, welcome. I am your host, Ingrid Thompson. This is a podcast for and about entrepreneurs and business leaders who think big, who take intentional action to create business success, financial independence, and who make a difference in the world. We're here to provide helpful, lively, thought-provoking podcast, and based on your feedback, it is all of this and more. I know you're keen to build your business and to have an impact in the world and live a life you love, generating healthy cash flow, sustained profits, and paying yourself an income. Listen in because this podcast has been made just for you. I'm your host, Ingrid Thompson, and I have been running my own business, Healthy Numbers, for almost 20 years. And during this time, I have worked with literally hundreds of people to help grow and build successful, thriving businesses. In this podcast, we hear from inspiring entrepreneurs and business owners who tell their business stories, and they tell it like it is, the ups and the downs. Each episode is your opportunity to pick up tactics to try in your business. Today is a wonderful conversation with Jessica Freeman. Here's what Jessica told me when I was asking her about how she got started, and she's talking about moving from her corporate role to running her own business.
And that entire year, that job was really awful. And like every day it was like, I would come home crying or almost crying and be like, I just want to take Jess Creatives full time. I want to do this. But my husband was working part-time, and I was like, I need to be able to financially make this work. And I just didn't think it would work. And then, as the fall came and things were just getting worse at my job, I was like, how far away am I from even being able to do this? And I looked at my numbers, and I don't know why I back then wasn't looking at my numbers as often as I probably should have been, and realized that at that point, it was like 6 out of the 9 months of that year so far, I had already been making at least was what I was making per month at my job, if not double at my job. And I was like, hold on. You mean to tell me I could have quit my job 8 months ago?
Imagine realizing that you're making more money in your side hustle than you are in your day job and not even realizing it, and staying in that job for so much longer while she was unhappy. Anyway, this is a terrific interview. Jessica shares wisdom from her 10 years in business, and of course the business has evolved and changed. One of the key changes she talks about with us has been for her to identify her niche. And as she says, this has so many unanticipated benefits. The ability to collaborate with the right people, creating specific content for her audience, and even tutorials for her niche audience. Being able to understand their technology, the ones that they use for the people she works with, and how this impacts the way she works. Needing to understand less types of technology. This is a terrific interview. There's so much to it, and I know you are truly going to find it helpful. She's a fun guest, Jessica is easy to listen to, and she explains the business concepts simply. As she likes to say, she has a degree in design, but not a business degree. And like so many people listening, you're so good at what you do, and you haven't been taught about business. So thank you for being here to listen, to learn from this podcast. This is truly why I started the podcast all those years ago. As always, there's no advertising on the podcast apart from me and my book and my guests. Jessica is at jesscreatives.com. This episode is brought to you by my book, So You Want to Start a Business. If you'd like a complimentary copy, head over to my website, healthynumbers.com.au. You only have to pay for the postage. For Kindle, head to Amazon. Anyway, enough from me right now. Let's listen to Jessica and her business story. Start up 10 years ago, so there's some years in between. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, and here we are today with Jessica Freeman. Hello, Jessica. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, I'm so excited. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, and thank you for making the time. Jessica, where are you right now, and what time is it?
Right now, I am in Atlanta, Georgia, and it is 5 p.m. So at the end of my work day, but happy to be ending it on a good note.
Very nice. Thank you very much. So 5 p.m. your time, 9 a.m. our time in Sydney. And just for the listeners, I'm under the flight path this morning. So if we can hear that funny sound every now and again, it's an aeroplane going over the top. But that's the joys. Oh, and there's a crow. So that's the joys of working from home, isn't it? Okay,
Yes.
Jessica, what is your business? Tell us, what's your business?
Yeah, so I am a graphic and web designer, and I primarily work with service-based business owners, especially those in the health and wellness fields like dietitians, personal trainers, that kind of fun stuff. And my business name is Jess Creatives, so it's easy to remember my name because my business name is the same. But yeah, that's me. I help business owners with their branding and websites.
Fantastic. And that was one of the reasons that I wanted to speak to you about your business. And we found a bit of a time trying to get the time right, didn't we? But we're here now. So
we made it work.
So is that your website as well, Jess Creative?
Yes, jesscreatives.com. And there is an S on the end after creative. Sometimes people don't hear that when I say that on podcast.
Because there's a lot of S's there, isn't there?
Yes.
Okay, so if anyone wants to check out Jess's work, go over there. It's pretty beautiful. There's some lovely, lovely things there.
Well,
so
thank you.
Yeah, no, I do a bit of stalking and checking out before we get started. So when did you start this business?
I started this in 2011, actually, when I was still in college. We had to brand ourselves as part of our senior project. And so that's when Jess Creatives was born. So it's kind of almost like I kind of fell into it because I, at the time, didn't think I would actually work for myself full time, or if I would, it would be like when I was 45 or something. Like I thought it was going to be like ages until then. So I was kind of like, oh yeah, I'll brand myself, Jess Creatives, whatever. But here we are.
So it was a school assignment, a college assignment first.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you started it, because it was a school. But what did you want? Now that then when you sort of realised it was a business, actually, was there a moment when you said, holy moly, I'm not 45 yet, but this is a business?
Yes, it was a few years after college. I was still just doing a very little freelance on the side with Jess Creatives because I moved after college. So I like lost all of my, quote unquote clientele, which were basically just my friends from college. But so, I had very few clients, but I got this new client and they wanted actual reoccurring work from me every single month. They did like a subscription box education thing for parents and kids. And they were like, we want you to design the material every single month. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like reoccurring work. This is not just, oh, I need a brochure. Oh, I need like a logo. Like this is the real deal. Like I need a contract for this. I mean, I probably had used contracts before that point, but it was like, oh, this is like a larger project. So I think that was one of my first moments of like, no, this is like becoming a thing, like becoming real.
Oh, that's so gorgeous. So now that it's a business, like, what did you want from a business? Like if it was something you thought about down the track and you have it now, what does the business give you?
So initially, going back to when I started in college, it was really just like an outlet for me because I was working corporate and I was designing, like I was a designer in my corporate job, but it was not fun stuff that I enjoyed. And so it was an outlet for me to, do the type of projects I really loved. Then when I started seeing it becoming an actual business and then decided, no, I really do want to work for myself full time and hopefully before I'm 45, then it was like, I want a business that gives me more flexibility, gives me, more flexibility, not just with my time, but with my own income and not just being capped on like, well, this is what you can make at this job, but I'm in full control of how much I can make. So that's really, it's a good, and still today, obviously, it's still a good outlet for doing the kind of work I love, but gives me a ton of flexibility with my schedule and my income.
Yeah, it sounds like it's working all the way around. It's good.
Yeah.
So that first customer came to you or client came to you and said, could you do this every month? It was a subscription recurring. How did you get the idea that there were other people would want this? Because that's one of the things when we start a business. It's, okay, so who is actually going to buy this
whatever it is I'm offering. How did you know others were going to? I mean, there was one and there were your college mates, but how did you get a sense the business needed you? The world needed you.
Yeah, it was actually, I think, being a part of this Facebook group that had other online entrepreneurs just like me. And most of them were also, doing their business on the side at the time. And there were some who were working full time, which kind of showed me that, like, oh, other people can do this that are not, 45, they're much younger. And so that kind of showed me like it was possible. And I saw that other people like had not just other web designers, but copywriters and online lawyers and accountants and other business owners were hiring them. And so it was like, oh, like there's this whole world of people. Like it's not just reaching out to people in my own community, but reaching out to people, connecting with people online. And then, realizing every business owner needs a website or a logo, a brochure, like all these kinds of materials, like we all need that stuff. And so that kind of helped me see like, oh, like I could really do this.
Mm-hmm. And so you chose a niche. So you work mostly with people in the health industries.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you choose that? And, what is it about them that you like working with?
Yeah, well, funny enough, back then I didn't have that niche.
Mm-hmm.
I started very, very broad. I used to, when I would be blogging in those first few years, and I'd be like, I remember writing a blog about like why you need a logo or something about like the importance of logo design. And I was like, if your organization, business, church, nonprofit needs a logo, like I was trying to work with anybody and everybody. And then over the last, 8 or 9 years, that has slowly become more and more niched down. And it's only been within the last about 2 years that I've niched down to the health and wellness. And for me, that stemmed from a personal interest. I was actually diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the age of 3. And so my health has been at the forefront of my mind and my life for basically my entire life. And so like, and I love going to the gym. I wake up at 5 a.m. every day and go to the gym. So I love learning from dietitians and personal trainers and wellness consultants and all that kind of stuff. Like it's something that really interests me. And so for me, it was something I'm actually interested in, but also like, I really support their message. I think the work they do is important. And so I want to help support them and their businesses. So that's kind of how I came to going from everybody to helping those in the health and fitness fields.
Yeah, I love that. And I can resonate with it so strongly because I feel very similarly. I think our health and our well-being is so critically important. And so many of the people working in that space are terrific at what they do professionally. But how do they make a website? How do they run a business? There's all this other stuff that goes with it. And to free them up to be able to do what they do really well. Yeah.
I'm like, you need to focus on making meal plans and workouts and doing all the science of that. You don't need to be concerning yourself with the website, and vice versa. Like I don't need to be concerning myself with meal plans and that kind of, like, I need to outsource that in my own life. And so it's, it works out.
It works out really well. It does.
Yeah.
So did you crunch any numbers at the beginning, to sort of figure out if this was viable? You had your corporate job, you were going to replace that salary. At what point did you say, how am I going to make this work money-wise?
So, like I said, I did this on the side for about, that would have been 3 years before I went full time. Yeah. And it was funny because that I quit my job at the very end of September. Basically, it was October 1st when I started working for myself. And that entire year, that job was really awful. And like every day it was like, I would come home crying or almost crying and be like, I just want to take Jess Creatives full time. I want to do this. But my husband was working part-time, and I was like, I need to be able to financially make this work. and I just didn't think it would work. And then, as the fall came and things were just getting worse at my job, I was like, how far away am I from even being able to do this? And I looked at my numbers, and I don't know why I back then wasn't looking at my numbers as often as I probably should have been, and realized that at that point, it was like 6 out of the 9 months of that year so far, I had already been making at least was what I was making per month at my job, if not double what I was making at my job. And I was like, hold on. You mean to tell me I could have quit my job 8 months ago? Not that I
Oh
probably.
my gosh. Jessica, I've never had such a good endorsement for looking at the numbers. Oh my God.
Yeah, hello, pay attention to the numbers, because you might be able to quit your job a lot sooner.
Oh my gosh. Say that again out loud. Pay attention to the numbers.
Pay attention to the numbers. Now you can bet that I look at my numbers a lot more often. Not that I need to quit a job or anything, but it definitely taught me oh my gosh, I could have been doing this.
And there you were crying in your pillow night after night.
Yeah. So
that's a horrible feeling, isn't it? That sort of
my gosh,
feeling frustrated. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the fact that you had that going on the side, and people sometimes have a second job, or they have something else where it's where their passion is.
Yeah.
And wonderful that you've been able to take that and grow it into income producing that really does sustain you and your family.
Yeah.
Amazing. Fabulous. Okay. So pricing, now that while we're talking about money, you don't have to tell us exactly what you charge, but how did you get a pricing model? I mean, you've been doing this since 2011. I'm imagining back then, there was probably some contra deals going on or different things, but, how have you evolved your pricing model?
Yeah. So back then, to get let's start from the very, very beginning, not just post-college, but the very beginning in college. Most of my work in college was designing t-shirts for the clubs on campus and, events, that kind of thing. And I literally would tell people, just pay me $10 and then give me a free t-shirt. And so I've come a long way from those days. But then, a few years after college, I kind of started looking at pricing, almost looking at and talking to other designers and seeing what they charged. That was kind of how I started out. And now what I do is I base it on the value of what I'm creating, and also how much work I want to be doing, how many clients I want to work with at a time, and what do I want to be making per month or per year. So if I only want to work with 2 clients in a month or 3 clients, then how much do I need to charge to be able to make the revenue that I need to make? So that's kind of how I do it now, which I think is the best way, because you may realize, if I just raised my prices, a couple $100s or something like that, and then I could take 1 less client and still make the same amount, then I'm less stressed, or, whatever. Or if you have a big income goal, then you keep the same amount of clients, but raise your prices. Because you don't want to be the cheapest in the industry, but you don't necessarily also want to be the most expensive either, unless you're really going over those, high ticket clients. But
what is one of the if you thought about being at the highest end of the spectrum, what's one of the things about that makes that difficult to sustain in a business?
I think the hardest part is that even if we don't like to admit it, people price shop. We all reach out to multiple designers, multiple business coaches, and compare, what's included. But at the end of the day, you only have so much money in your bank account. And I know there are so many mindset coaches out there who are you have to believe that the money will come and the investment will be worth it. And I'm yes, the investment is 100% worth it. But if I don't have $20,000 in my bank account, I don't have $20,000 in my bank account. If you want to take out a credit card or whatever, that's your business, and that you can do that. But for me, it's yes, there's a difference to me between stretching what you're comfortable with investing and being okay, this is a big investment, but I can do it. And then sorry, I don't have $20,000.
Yeah.
So,
And so we know that the clients think like that as well. I mean, if
yeah.
that's how we are, we know that our clients are in the same boat. Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of mindset and business coaches, have you had a coach? What role do those coaches, mentors play in your business?
Yeah, I do not currently have a business coach, but I have had several coaches in the past, usually for short periods of time. Like one time I was in a group coaching program, and that was so transformational for my business. I've also hired business coaches for a very specific kind of, I don't want to say project, but a very specific purpose. And it was like, oh, we had like 3 months together or 6 weeks together, and it was to work through this specific plan, project, whatever you want to call it. And those have always been beneficial to me. I think it's always good to get an outside perspective. And really, I think it's best to hire, like I mentioned, I had coaches that I hired for very specific reasons. And I mean, I think, yes, the kind of bigger picture business coaches are great, but I think also those coaches that are like, I specialize in coaching you through XYZ are really great because they specialize in that. And I think there's a lot more transformation that can happen when you hire someone who is like, I help you with this very specific thing, whether it's like a marketing plan or they're going to help you figure out how to grow your team or, whatever it is. I think it can always be really beneficial to get that specific help.
If we cycle back to your blog that said, if your church, not-for-profit business needs a brand, organization. So there's this broad, and so that's such a great point that when you need specific help, you go out and you look for a coach who can do that in 6 weeks or 3 months or whatever it takes. I'm totally with you on that. I think this whole notion of needing a coach for the rest of your life, or it's not you're not marrying them. It's not a long-term relationship. It definitely is something that's very specific. And I know I specifically work with people mostly around their finances, mostly around their numbers, understanding how that all fits together. I mean, I can do a ton of other stuff if people ask me those questions, but that's where my superpower is. I can make it simple for people to understand, and so that's terrific that you say that, and fabulous for you that when you need something. So let's go to that question. How do you know when you've reached your limit of capacity? Because you said there's stuff you outsource. How do you recognize that, Jessica, so that you can, go and get that skill or get that outsourced input when you need it?
Yeah. So, I mean, when it comes to like hiring coaches, I think it's each time that I've hired a coach, it's been like, this is maybe a little bit bigger picture. And I know just personally how I operate, I'm not a big picture person very much. And so I'm like, I need someone to help see that bigger picture in me. And I think sometimes it's just a self-awareness of like, do I need someone to look at this from a bigger picture? Do I need someone who like, is this not my zone of genius? Because we can't be a genius about everything. Like there's just things we don't know. And so, yes, you can DIY some stuff for a certain amount of time, but I think it comes down to like, okay, but am I doing this to the best of my ability?
Yeah.
Like, is this, how can this be better? And if it was better, how would that impact my business?
Yeah. So who else do you have on your team? Do you have VAs or other people working with you?
Yes. So I just in the last year hired 2 team members, and I say hired team members, they are contractors. They're not full-time employees, but I have a virtual assistant who helps me with, she adds clients into my CRM and like sends out the contracts and the invoices and that kind of admin stuff. She also does some Pinterest for me and just little miscellaneous tasks that are important, but not the best use of my time. And then I also have a copywriter, which I just hired her a few months ago. And she writes my weekly emails. And then if I'm launching a program or whatever, she'll help me with those emails as well. She's done like rewritten sales pages for me. And so again, like I'm a designer, I'm not a writer. When my clients come to me and we're talking about like, oh, you'll need this for your website and that for your website. They're like, do you do copy? And I'm like, you don't want me to do copy. I'm just like, you don't, just trust me. And so that has been amazing to take the weekly emails off of my plate. Because yes, they're important. I want to stay in contact with my community, my audience.
Yes.
But I'm like, there's no reason that this can't be done by somebody else.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's super smart, isn't it, to say,
yeah,
okay, I love that what you said. Is this not my zone of genius? Like, where is our genius zone, and stay in there?
Yes.
Because we do, it's easy to get caught up thinking, oh, let's try this. I could do that. And like you said, the weekly newsletter, it comes around so quickly, and your copywriter does it so much better than you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So let's pretend we have a magic wand, and we don't. And I don't know whether you believe in them or not, but we can't go backwards, but
right.
we can learn from lessons. And I know the people listening are inspired by what you've done. What might you have done differently?
I for sure would have niched down so much sooner.
Yeah.
It has made such a big difference in my business. It's made it easier to collaborate with other people because we serve the same audience, instead of like, oh, let's collaborate and you serve wedding planners and I serve just like anybody. And like, so it's like, it's easier to collaborate. It's easier for your messaging. Like, because again, you're not saying like, does your church, organization, nonprofit, business need a logo? Like, so it's so much easier for the messaging. And yeah, it's easier to create content like blogs and stuff, because I'm not just trying to talk about, why you need a logo for everybody. I can talk really specific. I know what platforms my people use, so I can create tutorials for them. And it just makes it so much easier. I've been doing, like I said, I really niched down to this industry about 2 years ago or so. And I'm like, I wish I'd done this so much sooner.
Oh, well, and there's another aspect to that as well that's just occurred to me as you were talking there, is that you don't need to know so much, because you just said there about which platforms they use. Well, if they only use X, Y, and Z, then you don't need to know A, B, C, D, everything else over there. That
right.
It just actually frees you up to be able to focus on the things that your clients need.
Yeah,
the niche. We say niche. I love that word. The way
I've heard, niche. I like. I even myself go back and forth. Sometimes I'll say niche, sometimes I say niche. I hear it all the time.
Yeah, it's pretty fabulous. And is there something that somebody could have told you early on? And I know that's kind of the same sort of question, but is there something that if somebody, maybe they did try to tell you and you didn't hear it, or if somebody could have told you, might have made a difference?
I wish someone would have told me early on that just because someone else is doing something in their business doesn't mean it's actually going to be good for your business.
Oh, I like that. Yes.
Yeah. Like, that can be anything. It could be a marketing strategy. It could be something as specific as like a tool for like social media scheduling. Like, I just think sometimes too many people get caught up in like, well, Amy uses that, or like, well, she does this on Instagram. And I'm like, just because they do it doesn't mean it's good. Or, I mean, because I hear that all the time, especially with website design. Well, like, this person has this button on their site. And I'm like, yeah, and it's a bad thing. Like, I'm a web designer, and just because people have that on their website doesn't mean it's good. Like, if you're only looking at people who've DIY'd their website and haven't ever had like a website audit, had it reviewed by a website designer, like whatever, then you're looking at potentially a lot of websites that are practicing bad things.
Yeah.
And when I say bad, I don't mean like illegal bad, just like
not good form.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And also not, particularly for a website, not very user friendly or not very intuitive for,
Yep.
you know, I sometimes go to a website and I think, where am I supposed to go for this? You know, you look around and you can't find what you want because it's not intuitive. That architecture isn't there.
Yeah.
Jessica, has it been tough? And what makes it tough? And how do you carry on?
Yes, for sure. This has not been easy. It has not been rainbows and butterflies. There's been a lot of learning because I don't have a business degree. I have a degree in design, but I didn't get any training in running on how to run a business. I don't have any entrepreneurs in my family. So it wasn't like, oh, I watched my parents do this and, you know, I can learn from them. But so, yeah, I've gone through a lot when running a business, just in the business stuff, but also, you know, I've gone through like my husband changing jobs and moving, and granted, not moving to a new state or anything, but we've moved. I actually 5 years ago lost my mom, and that was just 3 months after I went full time with Jess Creatives. So that was a whole thing to deal with. So yeah, there's been plenty of like tough moments, both personally and professionally. And it's, yeah, it hasn't been easy, but it's definitely been worth it.
Yeah. And I think, I'm so sorry about your mum. Yeah, I'm totally sorry to hear about your mum. It's one of the worst things, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have mine now either. And it really knocks you for six, but that was really early days for you. And yeah, amazing. Like you said, it's tough. There's everything about business is tough, but as you said, they're totally, totally worth it. Yeah.
Yes,
thank you.
absolutely.
Okay. So 3 characteristics, Jessica, that make you successful in business.
I think the first thing would be consistency. I'm a very disciplined, consistent person. My husband would say I'm disciplined to a fault. And I have business friends who are like, you are so consistent, it's almost annoying. Like, but I think that has helped me, just consistently showing up online, and consistency, not just in like, oh, I, you know, post every week or, you know, something like that. But yes, that is part of it, but like consistency and like the services I provide, and just the consistency. I think that's super important in business, because it can't be like, oh, I'm going to market myself really hard for 3 months and then disappear. Like, you have to be consistent. So that would be the first thing. The next thing I would say is not being afraid to fail. I have tried so many things and I'm like, I don't know if it'll work, but I'm going to try it. I mean, I tried to host an in-person event and not a single person signed up. So like, I lost money on that. Yeah. I had a completely flopped course launch like 6 or 7 years ago. Like I try things, and like, if it doesn't work, then I kind of circle back and like, why didn't this work? And then move forward. Like, it's not the end of the world. And I think part of what helps is I always have to remind myself, we are always more aware of our own stuff than everyone else is. Like, miss a blog post 1 week, maybe 2 people will notice. Like, and I know it sucks to hear that, but like, we are always so more aware of our own things. Like when people show up on Instagram stories and they're like, sorry, I've been MIA for 3 days. And I'm like, no one noticed. I didn't notice. Sorry. Like, if you need to take a break from Instagram, take a break. Like, we're not going to notice. And then I think the final thing would be always making it about people, not numbers. Like, relationships and focusing on relationships in business has been good. Not just in terms of like, oh, you know, collaborators and referrals, but like, I'm invested in my clients as people, not just, hey, okay, I'm going to do your website. Okay, thanks, bye. I'm invested in them. I care about them even after we're done.
Yeah. And Jessica, that's such a reflection of that whole industry that you and I both work in, is that one of the things that certainly draws me to the health professionals that I work with is that they care to this degree about their clients. You know, they're thinking about menu plans, they're thinking about exercise routines, you know, they're looking for different ways that somebody can do the same exercise that will have an impact for them. even when they're not with that client, because they're aware that, that's how they are. And that's, how you and I are about our business, because we're always caring about those people that are right there. Yeah. It's so funny you say about having a launch that had nobody. I ran a series of 6 weeks, and it was mapped out for 6 weeks, and I had done it around Easter as part of, how there's the Lent. So I said, well, how about, we have this education program, and I sat every Wednesday night for an hour and nobody showed up the whole 6 weeks. But I did it myself. I played the video. I did the exercises after it. And I just thought, well, you know what, Ingrid, this is for you.
And for me right now.
Obviously I need this more than anyone else does. But that was really back in my early days. And like you said, okay, so what didn't work about this? And it hasn't happened since. But I anytime now, even if I have 2 people, it's still better than those days when I had 0 people.
Right? Yeah. Like it can only go up from here. That's the best part.
It is indeed. So people look at you and they're inspired by what you do, because you are inspiring, Jessica. This time that we've spent together and the interactions you and I had setting this up, I just knew that you were special. They come and they say, I want what you've got. You've got this business. I've got this idea for a business. What's your response to that?
I would say you just have to put your head down and do the work. Like, don't worry about having the perfect website, the perfect logo, the perfect service package. Like, everything is fixable. Everything can change. You can change your logo. You can change your business name. Like, just start and just put it out there. Like, you'll make mistakes and you'll want to change stuff. You'll want to get rid of stuff. And that's okay. Like, you should every year, if not multiple times a year, like evaluate your pricing, evaluate, are these current packages and offers that I have in line with what I want to do? Are these the type of clients I want to be working with? And figure out what feels most in line with what you want to be doing and how you want to be running your business. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. It's so true. And, for someone who's been in business almost 10 years now, because you have, that's pretty sage advice, isn't it?
Yeah.
As we wrap up, Jessica, anything you would like to add before we call this to a close?
I would say, I just want to remind people, like, whether you're early on in your business, you've been in business for a few years, like, it's okay to grow slow. Like, as I mentioned earlier, when I was talking about like hiring my virtual assistant and my copywriter, those both happened last year. Like, I've been in business for almost 10 years and yes, I've hired people for short-term projects. Like, we talked about the coaches here and there, but like the ongoing support from my copywriter and virtual assistant only happened last year.
Yeah.
And yes, part of that was like my own mindset of asking for help, and part of it was budget, but also like, and there were many, many times in previous years before that where I felt like, oh, I'm supposed to be hiring help. I'm supposed to be growing a team. Everyone's talking about growing a team. And I felt this pressure of like, oh, I'm supposed to like create an agency where I have junior designers under me, and which I have no desire to do. And, I just felt like all this pressure of like, oh, I'm supposed to be growing and scaling my business because everyone talks about growing and scaling. And I just want to remind you, like, it's okay to grow slow. Like, you built this business because you want it to fit your life and not have your life revolve around your business. So whatever that looks like, that's okay, because what's important is that you're happy. That's what matters at the end of the day.
Yeah. And that your clients are happy, and that it's viable, that there's, that it's all working. That's all wrapped up in that. Jessica, thank you so much for your time today, your wisdom, your knowledge. And if anybody in that health and wellbeing space needs some help, we certainly will be sending them in your direction.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
JessCreatives.com.
Yes.
Thank you.
There is truly so much in this conversation. Look at your numbers. Work towards identifying your niche. Just because someone else is doing it doesn't mean it's good for you and your business. What are your key takeaways from this conversation with Jessica? If you know someone who would benefit from this business startup story, please share the episode with them. Thank you so much for listening. If you're keen to connect with me, head to LinkedIn, Ingrid Thompson. There's a Facebook group if Facebook's more your connecting place, and I've set it up called Healthy Numbers Profit Lab, and it's the community for business owners and entrepreneurs wanting to build and grow a profitable business. Head over there and look for Healthy Numbers Profit Lab. There's a couple of different profit labs, so you need to find the Healthy Numbers one. A couple of questions to answer and you're in. I go live every Monday, 12 noon Sydney time, and I talk about the things that will help you in business: mindset, money, cash flow, profit, paying yourself, and much more. I am known for being able to take the complexities out of business and make them simple to understand. All those complicated things, I'm all about making them easy to understand, especially when it comes to numbers and money. That's my guarantee to you, my wonderful listeners. Make it easy to always know where the latest podcast by subscribing. What have you heard today that inspires you to take action? As we always say, ideas without action, well, they are just that. They're ideas. Fabulous to have ideas. The question is, what actions are you inspired to take today? Till the next time, thank you for listening.